Somewhere in the building this week, a kid learned something about God that you and I have probably known for decades. Maybe it was that God is our creator, and if you were here this week, you would go, wow, God. That he created the entire universe, and yet also each and every one of us. Maybe it was God knows everything, wow, God. He knows everything about us, and he still loves us. Think about that statement. Maybe it was that God is our safe place, wow, God. Even if everything around us seems to be falling apart, we are safe in him. Maybe it was that God is love, which is definitely, wow, God. He loves us so much that he sent Jesus to die for us. And then Jesus rose victorious over sin and death in the grave. Or maybe it was that God is forever. Wow, that's the last wow, God there. That so many things in this life are temporary, but again, God is forever. But here's what stuck with me. These kids had 1 week to learn truths that are supposed to last them a lifetime. And again, for many of us in this room, we've been to VBS, and there are lessons we learned that maybe we don't even remember that we learned them at VBS, but we did, or we were reminded at VBS, and it sticks with us. But this whole time as I went through this week and was watching what was going on, this question kept coming back. Who is going to keep telling them those things? Because a week isn't enough. A week was never meant to be enough. VBS is a spark, not the fire itself. It needs to keep burning. And somehow, somebody has to decide that whether that spark catches or whether it will be gone by the time they're back into the school year in a couple of weeks. And if we're honest, many of us think of Next Gen Ministry as that thing that happens down on that end of the building or upstairs, kind of in that area up there. You know, it's the nursery, it's the kids' hall, it's the student and ministry room that has the pool table in it. If you didn't know that and you like to play pool, go visit the student ministry sometime because they've got that up there as well. And all of that's important, sure, but we think somebody else's job. We show up, we drop off, we pick up, we assume the people back there have it handled. But the truth that none of us likes to really sit with is that a church doesn't pass down its faith through programs. It passes down its faith through people. Actual people, spending actual hours, actual dollars, and actual willingness to change what we're comfortable with so the next generation has a place to land and a place to stand. Think about how you actually came to know what you know about God. For almost every one of us, it wasn't a curriculum. A curriculum played a part, but there was more to it than that. It was a person who kept showing up in our lives. Think about, again, what our kids spent a week learning, and I'm going to fly through them, so we'll skip the out loud wow gods on this, but again, 5 incredible truths that God is my creator, God knows everything, God is our safe place, God is love, and God is forever. None of those are probably new to any of us. But watch what happens when a truth that we've known for decades, when a full room full of kids says it out loud with their whole heart. It stops being background information and it starts being something worth building a life on again. Every generation of God's people has faced the exact same question, and it should be a question that kind of haunts us. Will we be the ones who let it stop with us? It's not a new question. It's actually one that's been asked throughout Scripture. Long before Rainforest Falls, long before there was Sunday school, long before any of us were born, God's people were wrestling with that exact same thing. How do we make sure that the next generation actually knows what we know, and more than that, that they meet the person that we have met, the God that we've met? So let's look at how Scripture answers that. Psalm 78, you're welcome to turn that way, or be on the screen in just a moment. It's one of the longest Psalms in the Bible, and it opens with something that sounds almost like a mission statement. And Asaph, who this is attributed to, isn't writing a private journal entry here. He's writing something that was meant to be recited, to be memorized, and passed on to children who hadn't even been born yet. Psalm 78, starting in verse 1, "My people, hear my teaching. Listen to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth with a parable. I will utter hidden things things from of old, things we have heard and known, things our ancestors have told us. We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power, and the wonders he has done. He decreed statutes for Jacob and established the law in Israel, which he commanded our ancestors to teach their children, so the next generation would know them, even the children yet to be born, and they in turn would tell their children. Then they would put their trust in God and would not forget his deeds, but would keep his commands. And notice what the psalmist commits to before he even gets to the history lesson. We see it in part of verse 6 where it says, we will not hide them from their descendants. And so this is a decision. This isn't something that happens accidentally. It's a decision that's being made. He doesn't say that the next generation will just figure it out on their own or that the truth about God is somehow self-transmitting. He says that we will tell them. It takes a generation choosing on purpose out loud to hand off what they know. And then look at verse 6 again. So the next generation will know them. There. And so that the next generation would know them, even the children yet to be born, and they in turn would tell their children. The psalmist, again, is thinking about kids who don't even yet exist. He's investing in people that he will never meet. And that's what it means to plant something that will outlast us. And here's the part that should stop us, verse 7. It tells us why it matters so much. Then they would put their trust in God and would not forget his deeds, but would keep his commands. The whole point of telling the next generation isn't about nostalgia. It's not about feeling good about the thing from the past. It's about trust, making sure they have a reason to put their hope in God the same way that we're supposed to. You can't pass down a faith you never talk about. You can't pass down a faith you never talk about. Faith doesn't stick to the next generation because we hope it will. It sticks because somebody says it again and again and again. That's why during VBS, one of the songs we did it like 9 times during the week because we want them to remember it to be able to do it in the second service this morning. There's something about repetition that helps it to sink in. But this is where this week, again, I want to connect something the kids have been learning with something that we have known our whole lives. And that is that one of the truths we learned this week is that God is forever. And it's not just that God lasts forever, though he does. It's that his character doesn't shift. It doesn't shift with the culture. It doesn't get replaced by the newest model and doesn't need a rebrand every few years. Now, that's actually good news for how we reach people, not a reason to freeze everything in place, because we might think, well, if God never changes, we should never change, right? But the reality is this: because the truth about him never expires, we're free to adapt our methods when we need to. The music, the language, the delivery when needed without ever worrying about losing him in the process. The message is forever. The method never was. Psalm 145 puts it this way. It says, I will exalt you, my God the King. I will praise your name forever and ever. Every day I will praise you and extol your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. His greatness no one can fathom. One generation commends your works to another. They tell of your mighty acts. They speak of the glorious splendor of your majesty, and I will meditate on your wonderful works. They tell of the power of your awesome works, and I will proclaim your great deeds. They celebrate your abundant goodness and joyfully sing of your righteousness. Verse 4 is really the hinge of the whole thing there, where it says, one generation commends your works to another. They tell of your mighty acts. The psalmist doesn't picture God's greatness sitting still. He pictures it moving. Generation to generation, like a torch that never touches the ground. If you've ever seen the Olympic torch, they light it and then they have this whole big thing of making sure it never goes out as it goes, and it's passed from one to another to another to another. A forever God deserves a forever investment. If God really is who VBS taught our kids he is, our creator, all-knowing, our safe place, love, and forever, then the worst thing that we could do is to treat that truth like a seasonal decoration that we break out once a year and then put back in the closet. A forever truth calls for an ongoing investment, Not for a week, not in a program, but a commitment that outlasts our convenience. So let's make it personal, because a message like this about the next generation that never really asks anything, well, that's not actually about the next generation. It's just a nice thought. So here is my question for us this week. Are we actually investing in the kids and students that God has placed here around us? Or are we just glad that somebody else is? I want to give us 3 specific ways we can answer that question honestly, because again, investing in the next generation can sound vague enough that nobody actually does anything about it. So the first thing is this, right off the bat, serve. We had over 40 people involved in VBS. Not just this week, some were involved in the process getting up to this week. I think during this week there probably were actually over 40 as well, but that did so many different things, whether it was decorating, whether it was helping us get different supplies, whether it was leading groups during the week, whether it was a crew leader, whether it was a station leader, whether it was doing games or snacks or any number of different ways, but so many served during this week. But here's the thing, our kids ministry and our student ministries need actual adults giving actual hours. You don't have to be an expert. You just need to be present consistently, because that matters more for a 9-year-old than the set of credentials ever will. So if you've been wondering and been thinking about volunteering at any point, maybe this is your nudge today. Kyle's in the room. I know he'd love to talk about student ministry. We've got a children's ministry team we can connect you with as well about jumping in and serving in children's ministry. But there's a great opportunity there. So right off the bat, serve. Second is to give. Passing down faith to the next generation costs money. Curriculum, safe places, safe spaces, train leaders, all of those things, they take an investment. Part of this year's VBS included an offering that we took up that the kids participated in for street-side showers. They brought 93 pairs of socks this week. And they brought just under 100, and I've heard that we've got a donation that will cover getting us at least to the $100 for the offering to go to street-side showers as well. I'm jumping ahead, sorry. Kids giving away their money and socks to strangers because someone taught them that generosity doesn't have to wait till you're an adult to do it. So they have already modeled this for us. Now it's our turn to follow their lead. Now we get to where Cara Powell comes in. The third thing is to give away your keys. Give away your keys. Researchers at the Fuller Youth Institute spent years studying churches who actually have figured out how to attract and keep the next generation. Cara Powell, Jake Mulder, Brad Griffin published what they found in a book called Growing Young. I've actually referenced it before. It is a great book. If you have any interest in seeing a church, what it means for a church to be able to reach the next generation, I'd encourage you to read it. But here's what they found that was really worth sitting with. Most churches, without meaning to, treat young people in one of 3 ways. Some leave them keyless, meaning they have no real access to responsibility at all. Your day will come, it's just not here yet. Some hoard the keys, keeping every meaningful decision in the same experienced hands. We've got the people that have always done it, so let's just let the people who've always done it always keep doing it, and there you go. And some loan the keys out for a weekend or a week like last week, a token roll or a one-time moment on stage, and then quietly take the keys back. But the churches that actually grow young practice what the authors called keychain leadership. Keychain leaders are described as those who stay aware of the keys they hold and are constantly opening real doors for the next generation instead of just handing them to a program to attend. Now, there are a good number of people probably in this room and certainly in our church that have keys. And the concept there is, being able to get into the things or being able to drive the car or whatever it may be and stuff like that. But the concept here is actually having the ability to be involved in making a decision and leading out in something and making a difference there. It's not a title with no authority behind it. It's actual trust. It's actual responsibility. It's maybe, again, physically actual keys. That's not a new idea that we've come up with. We actually see that in Psalm 78 that we looked at a moment ago. The next generation doesn't just hear the stories, they in turn will tell their children as well. The handoff isn't complete until the keys actually change hands. So imagine if our church became known as the place where the next generation wasn't an afterthought, but a priority that was written into our budget, into our calendar, into our Sunday services. Imagine if every Sunday around here, a little bit of what happened, what that VBS canopy closing was about, the real energy, the real celebration that was there, kids shouting real truths that they learned about a real God, except it wasn't just happening at a 1-week event, but it was happening every single week throughout our church, and it was all of us. And then I want to leave you with this, and then we're gonna pray and move into our response time. Imagine if 20 years ago, some of the kids who were here this week, who shouted, "Wow, God," in this very room here, that they're the ones who are leading VBS for the next generation that comes behind them, that are teaching those kids the same truths because someone decided to be the bridge. And honestly, you don't have to imagine that hard if you got a glimpse of this week, because it already happened. There's kids that have grown up in this church that we're leading out this week. There's a 6th grader that had literally been in VBS last year that was going around and helping make this week happen. And there were station leaders that were kids who had grown up in this church. There were crew leaders who had grown up in this church. The video that we watched is a kid who grew up in this church that now is, as a young adult, like, we see this happen, but let's pour ourselves in to see it happen even more. That's not a program, that's a legacy. God has been forever long, before any of us were even on the picture, and he'll be forever long after we are gone. The question in front of us this morning is whether we will be the generation that hides that truth in the closet, or if we will be the generation that continues to pass it to the next. Let's pray.